Hello and welcome to another free code session. My name is Jason Bach, and I want to wrap up the experimental stuff with rocks. You know, it really hasn't gone much of anywhere because the stuff I have tried has been shown to not really work that fast. So, or really made any difference, which is okay. That's why you do benchmarking tests, because you don't rely upon your intuition. You don't just assume that I know this is going to be faster, or I know that this is going to be a better way to do it. You might be right. And if you have experience, you're probably going to be right. But any team that wants to make sure their stuff is better is not going to rely upon intuition. They're going to write the test, they're going to do the performance testing, and they're going to make sure that things are actually showing that they're better. So that's what I did, and it wasn't. That's okay. So what I want to do today, or at least in this episode, is try out one more idea, which is, well, there's two. One of them is doing a dictionary of int handler information rather than using immutables. It dawned on me that I could possibly do this as a jagged array, and I went, well, let's just see where this goes first. Okay. And again, by doing this, I'm going to have to make the constructor slower to pull everything out. But if the call itself is faster, then I'll actually change create handlers to give it as a dictionary, give it as a structure. So we'll see how that goes. The other thing, again, is also somewhere up the chain is to say, like when you do rock create, is to give a number as to how many expectations you plan on creating. Because if you're going to do 3, then, just pass in 3. And I might also set the initial capacity. You know what? Let's actually look that up. I'm kind of curious. So, oh boy, I never remember where, hold on. I think, because one of the reasons I do presentations, or at least have ideas of presentations, that it actually helps me group things together. And I think I might have in my notes here somewhere a link to the actual source index. Yes, source.net. Okay. Source.net. Boom. So let's say list. Let's actually say, can you say system.collections.generic.list? Yes, you can. So there's like an initial capacity in here. Default capacity is 4. Okay. So, I see. So it initially set to 0, and then it will reallocate it to 4, and then it will reallocate it to 8, 16. I think it used to be a capacity of 16. I could be wrong on that. That might have changed over time. But the thing is, if you know what a good, this is interesting. The list is initially empty, but will have room for the given number of elements before any reallocations are required. So, no, it does actually make it to, oh, okay, I see what it's saying. I misread that's my fault. Okay. So yeah, if you knew you had 3, then just make the bound, the wrapped array a size 3, and then you won't have to keep doubling. I don't know if it just will initially double or what the strategy is afterwards. But if you know you're only going to have 1 or 2, then just set it. It's not that huge of a deal, because if the default capacity is 4, then why even bother? The only thing it's a little annoying is that you will set it to an empty array. It's interesting that I thought you wanted to do array empty of t, but maybe that's an optimization they're doing. So the thing is, you'll have an empty array and then it will immediately allocate to 4. Why don't you just allocate to 4 if you know you're going to be making more? So I might have rocks just automatically allocated to 4, or maybe 2, because it seems like most people should be just making 1 or 2 expectations. Okay, so anyway, first things first, let's go back here And I'm going to clear everything out. Okay, I'm going to take these out. We're going to keep one of the tests in because, you know, reasons. And we're going to come back in here. We're going to pull this out. And then we're going to say something. And what we're going to say is a class. Thingy. It's a Sunday morning and I don't have a lot of brain cells going right now. Okay. So we're going to say, I do stuff, experiment extensions. Okay. And then again, instance experiment. Okay. All right. That should shut everything up except down here. Oh, that's right, because we don't need this. We do not need that. That's all right. That's okay. Okay. So now what we want to do is here we want to have a private read-only dictionary of a handler information of arrays. I'm so confident. Optimized handlers, which is such crap. All right. And then we're going to say for each, let's do this, new. For each var pair, handler pair, and this dot handlers, we're going to do this dot optimized handlers at handler pair of key is equal to the handler pair value. Now what's the value? Is that a 2? Good. And that should just give us the right. Okay, so now what we want to do is optimized handlers. Can you do that? Yes, you can. And then this is just everything just excuse me, everything just falls out of place. Not out of place, but you know what I mean. Okay, so that does that, and that should be good, at least for the experiment. Okay, so now what we want to do is change this to say, we're going to call this structure tests. They're structures, they're data structures, right? Yes, of course they are. So now what we're going to say here is constructor, nope, structure normal, because I have no better words this morning. Okay. And why are you barking? That should be just fine. And it is because, huh? Oh, we don't want that. We don't need that. Okay, now you should be good. Okay. Yes. And that goes to that. So this will go into here and give that one. This one should go into the generated one. And it does. Okay, so we're good. Okay. So let's come up to program. Tell it to run the structure tests and we'll see what it does. So I'm going to let it run and we'll check out the results and see if they had any. Whoa, hold on. Let me think about this for a second. Yeah, that isn't what we want to do. See, I deleted the wrong thing. What I want to have is a private read-only I do stuff normal, and then we want an experimental one. Experimental. Okay. And then we do want to have in here public structure tests. What we want to do is that. Okay. And then we want to set this dot normal equal to rock dot instance. Okay. And then we want to set this dot experimental equal to rock dot instance experiment. There we go. Now what we want to do in here is change this to void. and say this dot normal. Good thing I caught this, because that would have been really stupid. And we need the B, private read-only GUID B. This dot B is equal to that. We pass in this dot B. Okay, so now we're going to say in the normal a thank you. I will accept all of that. And because I like expression body for members, we're going to do that. Then we're going to say this is structure experiment. Experimental. Let's just be consistent. Okay, so I think I got everything here the way it really should have been. Okay, I think this is correct. Okay, so now I will run the test and we will go through the results and see if there was any difference between doing these two. Be right back. All right, results are in. Do you want to see? Why do I keep asking that? Because it's funny to me, which is stupid. There is a slight difference. This isn't that surprising that it would be slightly faster. I think, you know, the dictionary type, using an array rather than using a immutable array, somewhere within those two, you know, there's just a slight bit of overhead. The allocations are no different, so that doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. So what I want to do now is let's bump up the volume a little bit. Let's do this test so that we don't have like one argument, two arguments. Let's change I do stuff to being 4 and then 8. And then I'll run tests for both of those. Okay, so let's go through the code and you can see what I'm going to get at here. So let's go to, why did I call this class thingy? It's such a stupid name. Even when you're doing experimental stuff, and I, as you've seen, I've kind of fallen into doing it myself, which is, let's not take no arguments. Let's take 4. Okay. And do C and then D. Okay. You know, it's one of those things where you start, oh, how do I say this? You don't give as much care to how you're actually structuring stuff, and you at least like I said, I've fallen off and not had the greatest names for things and stuff, but that's okay. All right, so now what I want to do is come back here. We do not implement this because, first of all, we don't need this. Okay. Second of all, this is now 0. Okay. This should be 0. Okay. And let's come back and see what the generated code looks like, because we want to have like all this is what we want in our found block. In fact, we also want the else to be technically the same thing. Okay. To be fair. And yes, you don't know what that is because you don't know what 4 is. Let's just copy all this. Really the only thing that was different is that the handlers become optimized handlers, right? Because that's the only thing that changes. So now we come back to our structure test. We need a B and a D, and I know you could declare those on the same line. Okay. We want to say B and D, and then this is 4, and then we'll say C this dot D. Okay. And let's quickly grab this because we're going to have the same thing everywhere. Okay, so we're going to do this, go all the way, but not quite. And then that. Does that build at least? It does. Okay, so now we're going to do 4. And let's quickly go through my code here again. I just want to make sure that's always going to be the same, the constructor. But then this is all it's going for is the optimized handlers. Okay, so let's close that out. Let's go to program and let's run it again, and we'll see what the results are for 4. Be right back. Okay, here we are with the results. It's starting to even out. There's hardly any difference between the two. And just to make sure, If I come into my optimize handlers, yep, everything's, and then it doesn't matter because you're going out to that, and that is an array, not a mutable array. Okay, so and to be fair, I'm going to do the 8 one, but to be fair, as I was thinking that as a test we're running, you really should have a method with 8 arguments. Yeah, that's something that you're trying to avoid. So yeah, I even if there was a gain with just having 1 or 2, the reality is that is it worth all that change? I don't really know. But to be fair, let's do the right thing. Let's say call it take 8, and then we will do this. Okay, we'll say E, F, G, and H. Great names. Okay. And now we can come into the generated code and we should have a take 8 arguments. Okay, and we'll just have to change that one thing in there. Okay. Let's go to that one. Do that. Oh, nope, you want that. Okay. But we need to make this optimized. That's all. It's the only thing that needs to change. Okay, except now we also need to go into the tests here, and we need F and H. Okay. And then we need to say here 8 E this dot F G this dot H. Okay. And then we're going to copy all this. Put that in here. And one more. All right. Except that was 1 dot too many. Come on. All right. We're going to let this run. And if trends are showing, these should pretty much even out. But we'll see. Okay. So everything's good. Do you build? All right. One more run, and I will be right back. And as expected, 8 arguments gives you virtually the same thing. There's hardly any difference. So there might be a slight gain in doing like 1 or 2 arguments, but then after that, the difference is hardly noticeable. We're talking like 2 nanoseconds. So, is it worth all that change to just do that? You might get with 2 arguments. What is that? 7 nanoseconds. It's just not worth it. It's really not worth that much of a difference, especially since they basically even out to almost the same thing anyway. So that's okay. Again, all this work I've been doing the past couple of episodes, I was hoping that there would have been something a little bit more tangible to grab onto, and unfortunately, that's not the case. The one remaining idea is to potentially do something with the allocations of the arrays themselves and the lists and stuff. Even that, I'm like, is that even worth it? Because it's just, it just doesn't seem to be a lot of good work. The one thing, though, I do want to look at here is, well, is it in here? If I come back over here and I go into the generated code, if I come down here, this is a list of argument where it's doing this. I'm curious, if I did this, let's just pull it into here, even though it's going to cause a problem. Okay, that's okay if it does. What I'm curious is, can you say here, 8? Yeah, like what does this do underneath the scenes? If I do an object initialization there, does it realize, oh, you're passing in 8 values, so I'm going to set the capacity to 8? Or do I allocate to what would be 0, and then up to, does it put all those elements in at the same time? So, hello, ILSpy. We're going to spy on something here. Okay, let's go into, you can go away. Let's go into the repo of 7 bin release 6. Where is, I think it's this one is the one you want, right? I can never remember if it's the DLL or the, I was right. Okay, so somewhere in here though, it should be compiling in this, and it does. Okay, so it doesn't. Okay, so just to be, oh, you know what, let's wrap it in and let's go into that sweet, sweet dark mode. There we go. Oh, it didn't, interesting. Okay, so it's creating a list, calling the default constructor. So that might be one spot to still look at, which is in here, the code that I'm generating for the method expectations when I'm creating the new list is actually to say, you know what, here actually put in 8. Put in the number of arguments you're about to pass in. That might make it slightly faster. Though I don't think the tests that are in that benchmark mocknet actually, care about that. So, but we do. I mean, if we know it's going to be 8, then said it's a list of 8, you're going to pass in 8 things and, you're good. Now, the other thing that's kind of interesting is it is literally calling add on every single one of these. Is it actually better to do a, like, what am I trying to say here? If I say var object initialize and I say new list of string and I give you A, B, C, I noticed that, D. If I give a capacity and I say here 4, and then I do that, or can I pass in like everything? I mean, I thought there was a way to say there's an init capacity, an enumerable. I know this is just like, this is getting away from rocks per se, but I am curious if I didn't say, yeah, I don't have an enumerable and I don't want to create an enumerable just to pass it into the list to set it what it should be. But what I am curious is, let's do this. We're going to pass back a new list of 4. Okay. And so we're going to pass back a list of string. Okay. And then here we're going to do a list of string 4. Okay, and make that a list of string. And then we're going to say this is that. Now, let's get rid of that, get rid of that. Okay. And we don't even need this anymore. We just need that. Okay, does that build? All right, I'm just curious. Let's run this and see what happens. All right, so as you can see, it does make a slight difference with putting in 4 values. It gives you it's the same amount of memory allocated, which is kind of interesting, but it does make it a little bit faster. And I am curious if I did make it something that was enumerable to pass those in. I don't know if that would actually make a difference though or not. I'm really kind of wondering if it would. So, if you made an array and you just pass in the array, would that be better? Let me try that. I'll be right back. Okay, as expected, don't go the enumerable route. It's slower and it allocates more memory. But the thing that I was thinking about is, why in the first place am I... Let's go into the generated code. This generator is not generating files. Well, you know, that's just great for it. It's actually kind of sad. Let's close this and bring it back up again so that we can get it to generate files. But the thing I just went through my head is, why are we even making a list there? If the whole point is we're passing in the number of arguments that should be there, then why are we making it a list? I guess the only thing I could think about is the exact same thing that I was talking about before, is that we want a list of handler information, not an array. But why can't that be like an array right there, or make it an immutable array right there, and rather than making it a list of something that you know the exact size is going to be? I don't know. What do I know? Let's go back here. Why are you not generating files? Okay. Oh, because I didn't. Yeah, okay. var x is equal to rock.create I do stuff. You know, if you wanted to create files, then you need to write code that will make it create a file for you. And now if we say this, rocks. Gotcha. Okay. So if this is method adornments, new method adornments of I do stuff action, it's passing in a self.add of the member identifier 0, and then packing up all of the arguments. I think the thing though is that I could, it's to me a little obvious that what I could do, let's get rid of this, that was a bad idea, is to experiment what would happen if I had 0, 0, which it should default to 0. That's the behavior. But if I had 2 and then 4 and 8, I'm going to do that off camera though. I don't want to bore people with this because it's, quite frankly, a little boring at this point. But that doesn't eke out a lot, but that's just a little bit more. And as a code change for rocks is very simple. All I would need to do is come into here and literally change that to being 8. Like hard bake the value in there to 8. And then I just get a little bit less performance because it doesn't have to, as we saw in ILSpy, it doesn't have to reallocate. Okay. Even though it's calling add with all of those values, it doesn't matter because it doesn't have to reallocate the array once or twice, or how, because if it'd be 0, then it says it goes to default and then it would go to 8. And then it would actually hit in this case. Okay, but why do we even need to do that? We know we're going to need 8, hit 8. So I'm going to play with that and do some testing. And then in the next episode, I will show you what I came up with. And then if I think that's actually worthy, that should be a really quick change in rocks, and I can put that in there. So thank you all for watching. Leave comments and questions below. See you in the next episode.